Hello and welcome to this unit showcase and analysis from all of the units that were showcased in the Boris campaign and in the Skaven Thanquol battle from yesterday. Definitely be sure to like and subscribe for more content, and let's get into this one. So I'm going to be going through all of the units that were showcased in those two specific events, not yet for all of the rest of them that were showcased on streams. And we're going to be covering and speculating and doing some analysis on their stats, doing comparisons between the units. And yeah, we're going to be also speculating on how they will affect the meta compared to the current state of the meta when the patch does come out. Again, this is a bit incomplete since we just don't have all of the information and all of the units, especially for the Empire, because we don't know the specific costs of all of the units, but that's why we're here, right? To speculate. So without further ado, let's get into it. So first thing that is very specific to Empire right now, they're going to be getting a new passive ability on a couple of the units that were showcased. The passive ability is going to be Crush the Weak, and it's going to be tied to all of the units that are Ulrichian, which basically means the couple of units and Todbringer that were showcased. So let's first see if this is any good. Spoiler, it's not. Like, effect intensity increases by each enemy unit in range with leadership wavering or lower. Ironically, CA changing the Crush the Weak passive, the Crush the Weak ability on Boris Todbringer completely debuffs this thing. Because previously you would have like Blood Roar and Crush the Weak and him on the Griffin. So that means that whenever he lands, he basically does a leadership bomb on the unit, and then maybe this could have triggered, especially with 55-meter range. But as it stands, man, like 15% speed, who cares? Charge speed, same thing. Like, you're not gonna have dominant cavalry engagements up to 15%. That means like probably up to 3 units charge this up, and then you have to have them still wavering. This is a passive effect that needs other units wavering constantly. So that means you're getting 5% base plus 5% armor piercing for every single unit that's in there. It's just not good. Like, neither the numbers are good enough to carry it, neither the stats that you get are good enough to carry it, unfortunately. So I have a high doubt that any of that Crush the Weak is going to be like something that you play for to be triggered. It's going to be just a background passive that you don't even notice, most likely. But yeah, if you have different opinions than me, then one, you're wrong. Second, leave them in the comments so that I can tell you that you're wrong. Simple as that. So let's get into the first unit, which is the Knights of the White Wolf. So when it comes to these guys, we're going to zoom out a bit here, and we're going to look at their friends called the Questing Knights on Bretonnia. And we're going to do some comparison here. So let's look at this. Okay, 90. So numbers are hard. So this one says 90. This one says 90. Okay. So the first three, on the third one, it's a bit different. And then these two, melee attack and melee defense, are basically the same. +1, plus minus 1. Same thing from the weapon strength. Oh, I think we have a sort of a situation here that is displayed as this Spider-Man does show it for us. It's basically the same unit. So when it comes to speculation on how much they will cost, like, the Questing Knights are considered on, like, Bretonnia has the best cavalry in the game, right? And they're supposed to be the best. And their ones cost 1100. Assumedly that these guys also cost 1100, and they have Crushed the Weak, right? So I guess this costs something, I guess 25 or something. They're probably going to be in the same range or a tiny bit more expensive than the Questing Knights, just because this is Bretonnia we're talking about. So I'd say like 1150 or something for the baseline cost, but I still don't think that they're going to be used, honestly. The stats are good, but what are they? What is their speciality here, right? So when I think of an armor piercing, no bonuses, very limp charge at 1100 cav, what is their purpose? Like maybe hammering the anvil of something that is very, very armored in melee combat, but that's just not ideal. It just isn't. And you probably want something with anti-large to actually help you win the fight versus other types of cavalry. And they're just not ideal targets. So I just don't think that they're going to be as used as the other variants of their respective cavalry department. Same thing with questing knights. Like, you don't see questing knights. You see other knights. You see knights of the realm. You see knights errant. Why? Because they're much cheaper. And they have stuff like bonus versus large, or still keep in the stats, but are just cheaper because you don't want to spend 1100 on an armor piercing nothing unit, right? They don't have even good charge bonus. 35 is really low for this type of cav, but yeah, they definitely should be either getting like a small buff to up to like 45 or something. Then I'd consider them. Otherwise, I think this is the main loser cav of the Empire, at least in multiplayer. Everything that we're speculating here is specifically related to multiplayer, mind you. In campaign, I can like see that you can get a bunch of stats here, and then these guys are going to be okay because they're going to get juiced up and they have relatively good melee attack and melee defense. Otherwise, just don't think they're going to be used. So next up, we got the Knights Panther. Knights Panther looking much better. Very respectable charge bonus, 60. Not the best, not the worst. Relatively good stats. Also quite durable in combat after the charge. This is much better. They also get a shield. They also get more armor, which is very nice. And they do get the 9 bonus versus large. 9 bonus versus large, which isn't anything to write home about, but not bad either. So I'd say that this unit definitely fills in a role. And when it comes to the comparisons that we can get, something like Knights of the Blazing Sun, Knights of the Black Rose, Demigryph Knights, all in the range. And when you look at the price of them in the campaign, they're a bit more expensive than Knights of the Black Rose, which, I don't know if I would buy them if they're more expensive than 1250. 1300, they kind of are very close to the demis that already exist in their range. But if they're like in the 1200 range, which I assume that they will be, I feel like these guys are pretty good. Especially filling in the niche of fighting other cavalry, and they're quite armored. But I have to pose a different question. Are they better than Knights of the Blazing Sun? Are they? Because when you look at the stats are relatively comparable, especially on everything except for melee defense, right? Melee defense is atrocious on Knights of the Blazing Sun, but they get what they don't get in melee defense, they get in charge bonus, which is arguably more important because on charge, let's say 2 cavalry units charge each other. The one with the higher charge bonus is going to have an inherent advantage. Also, super important thing, spell resistance. If you're facing an opponent that is going to have spells, which is everybody except Dawi and Korn, you're going to get spelled. That means Searing Dooms, that means Bunas, that means other types of spells, Melkoths, and stuff like that, that is going to be going into your units. Is it worth to sacrifice 25% spell resistance and less charge bonus on your cav for just a bit more melee stats? That's going to be the question. And we're going to be letting our Empire mains like Scrambled Egg, like Danny, like Daniken, test this out for sure in the games. I do see that these guys exist, especially when you don't want the Knights of the Blazing Sun for whatever reason, and you need a specifically anti-large cav, right? You definitely, I see these guys being used, or at least explored, because comparatively to the demis have 32 models. You don't always want to bring healing on Empire, and whenever you bring demis, you're kind of forced to go into healing, which isn't ideal always. So I can definitely see you using, just cheapening out for the 250 from the demi halberds or the ROR, and then just grabbing these guys as a deterrent for your opponent. Definitely gonna be used. Definitely, I don't know if they're meta breaking or meta changing. They're just an alternative. Like this is the definition of a side grade here. Boris, we're just looking at Boris. Nice to see him. Cool little brown beard, Jesus Christ, orange beard. Just put him here just because he's a unit. Nothing super special to say. The main downside that you get for with him now is Crush the Weak, man. They definitely Crush the Weak is the main loser here. Next up, we got the Warriors of Ulrich. So, it really depends on how much these guys cost, because these guys are very cheap in campaign. And they're so cheap, in fact, that they're literally on the same level as a spearman with shields. And these guys, spearmen with shields, they're 350. If this is a showcase of how much that they're going to be costing, like 375, 400 maybe, max, these guys are going to be used for sure. Especially into matchups where, like, usually when you're going into Empire just brings frontline to stand there and do nothing, right? Swordsmen basically not going to be winning any fight. Spearmen, same thing, nothing to write home about. But if you're going into the stats here, mind you, like -2 and -2 because I took a screenshot of the Chevron version. These guys are going to be doing okay. Because they're going to be fighting, they're going to be winning at least some of the battles. They have a cute bonus +5, I think, of bonus versus infantry. They get Crush the Weak, whatever. But they're at least a front line that doesn't just stand there. They can fight back a tiny bit, mind you. But yeah, especially because there's 120 of them. So they're going to be doing okay, I assume. It's going to change up definitely the ability of Empire, especially with the units coming up. Like Empire is going to become a faction that can bring a front line with the new additions. So this is super exciting. Like the similarities are mostly with the Rangers here from what I chose, but yeah, nothing super to write home about. But Rangers compared to them have the 20% Phys Res, but they're relatively similar in stats. So Rangers is probably the easiest comparison between these two units. But the Rangers are 600 because they get stuff like Vanguard, they get Phys Res, they get Martial Prowess, so definitely a bit overcosted. I expect these guys to be like 400. And if they are 400, definitely going to be taken. Because usually you just expect shields and spearmen on Empire. And now to Wolfkin. These guys definitely should be performing very well on Empire. Because look at these stats, man. 39-28, and that is before Frenzy. Frenzy is going to jack these guys up at 49-28 with armor piercing. So Empire no longer afraid to fight the front line. And when it comes to the price of them, like 188 probably puts them somewhere in the range of 600, like between these two units when it comes to the stats. Because if you will look at the stats, they're very close to White Lions of Grace, right? Very close to weapon strength, very close to melee attack and melee defense, but they're better because of Frenzy. But these guys are better because of Martial Prowess and the extra missile resistance. So I think they're gonna be like 600. I don't think that if they go higher than 600 into the range of the great swords, like 650, let's say 650 probably. More realistically, it's going to be 650 because of the cracked stats. These guys are definitely going to be taken. These are your Forsaken killers, right? And you don't need to spend 850 on great swords. These are now your Forsaken killers. They're going to die as well because they have only 30 armor, but they're going to give it back to the Forsaken. They're going to be giving it back to Dwarf Warriors or Chaos Dwarf Warriors or any sort of frontline that also has like the armored version of the frontline, which is exciting. Like this gives Empire definitely a fighting chance into certain factions. So I'm very much approving of this unit. Can't wait to see what they're actually going to be doing with it. So next up, we got the Teutogen Guard and the Order of the Axe Teutogen Guard, so the ROR. So when you compare these guys, they're basically a chosen unit, right? Because look at the stats. Stats are quite similar to each other. They do get charge bonus versus large, which is very nice, or charge defense versus large. So that is very nice to see. They also get ITP, which sure, I mean it's an upgrade from chosen. Chosen really should not be getting terror routed, right? Especially if you think of the lore. You get a nice little bonus of the Sunder armor effect, which is the minus 30 armor. So pretty nice. But the main question here is, do you ever see chosen used anywhere? No. That's what I thought. Chosen aren't used anywhere. Why are chosen not used anywhere? Because one spell and a chariot absolutely destroys a chosen unit. So that is why you don't see chosen units. And they're 1350. And in the campaign, these guys are at 1550. So that means that the normal version is probably literally going to be 1350, like 200 for the extra stats. And this is not the greatest of upgrades, honestly, for 1550. You only get bonus versus infantry of, I think, +8. And then you get the normal stats and then like 10 leadership. Like that's nothing to write home about to upgrade for 200 gold. So very lackluster upgrade of the ROR. Maybe you're gonna get to see these guys into certain matchups, maybe like Chaos Dwarves, but you don't want to bring them into spells. Or maybe like Khorne if you want to outfight a Khorne mass grind, and you don't want to run around with 3 chariots, 2 engineers, and the spellcaster and like Gelt or something. So you bring 2 to Guard and try to man fight them with the previous few units like the Wolfkin and stuff. I can definitely see that as a possibility for an army. Very niche though, but still a possibility. So gonna be like a C tier unit probably, and these guys are like A. But yeah, anything else for these guys that you guys can comment? I just don't see it. I don't know. I just don't see the Teutogen Guard being used. Like Crush the Weak, completely useless. And the next unit, S tier. S tier addition to any faction. Hunting Hounds. Hunting Hounds are such a good unit that, for example, Empire currently does not have a equivalent to this. Because sometimes you just want a defense for your backline that isn't an Empire Knight. That is the cheapest thing that you can bring on the roster. So having Hunting Hounds to just screen, you don't need to actually use them. You just mirror your opponent's cavalry or dogs, and you basically have the same dog unit. Like when you look at the stats for the Chaos Warhounds and the normal hounds, it's a couple of points up and down, but it's basically the same unit, right? These guys somehow lost one dog though, because yeah, they just forgot the +1 HP on the dogs for some reason. But otherwise, they're basically the same hound unit between all of the factions. You kind of ignore the wolf rats over here. They're just a bit too expensive. I don't know why they're 550. Like, please buff more rats, more rat buffs. But yeah, when it comes to the hunting hounds, definitely a big upgrade here for the ROR version, because when you get the ROR, which is somehow less expensive in upkeep than these guys, but we're gonna ignore that for now. Not in development, right? You get fear, which is crazy that you get fear. You also get 10 more leadership, which is insane on dogs. And oh, right, I forgot to mention this. When I was looking at their stats, something seemed off, and it's literally the leadership. Look at this. You get 7 extra leadership on your hunting hounds. Why? How are they so well trained? I mean, understandable. These are just Chaos Norscan, and then Undead, and then the shittiest version, like the Skaven Slave Wolf Rats. Look at this. They have less leadership than a Skaven Slave, who has 35. But these guys are at a very respectable 45, so they're not going to be running instantly when they go into combat and something touches them, which is awesome. That's like every hound's wet dream is not to shit themselves in combat and immediately run. So these guys are going to be performing great. And as I said, they're going to be screening for your outriders, for your pistoliers, and it's going to be just much easier to protect them. So playing mobility game and having something that's a quick reinforcement from the Vanguard, which Empire usually does not have. Very good. Like, very, 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 very good. I think these guys are going to be an auto-include, like a minimum of 2 auto-include, probably the ROR2, depending on how expensive it is going to be like in every single Empire army. There's no reason not to take these guys. You always want a Hound unit, either for capturing objectives, screening for your skirmishers, defending your backline, which Empire always has, etc., etc. So S tier unit, S tier addition to the Empire army. They're probably going to be somewhere between 400 and 475, I'd assume. If I were to guess, I'd put them at like 425 or maybe 450, just because of the better leadership that they get. Knowing CA, they're probably going to overbuff this unit and put it like at like 400. But honestly, totally fine with me. Like putting them at 400 is like totally okay. And yeah, definitely they definitely should exist and help out Empire. Empire is not in the greatest of positions right now. And now we move on to the last unit from Empire, which is the Celestial Hurricaneum. And this is your quintessential campaign unit. There's no other way to put it. Like, it has a bunch of bound spells, which is Comet of Cassandora over here, and then Raging Tornado, which is basically Heart of Winter, literally the same spell. When it comes to both the numbers and the durations, basically the same spell. So another one with right here with the Spider-Man meme, basically the same thing. And then we have a couple of more buffs when it comes to lightning strikes. So this is an area of effect bombardment when it's in combat. So it's just gonna pew pew, and hopefully it's as good as Eltharian's like Rain of Arrows thing. But I'm not hopeful for that. Potence of Battle, okay. And then plus 30% because of the per spellcaster ability here of the Locus of Azir. This is actually very nice, especially for campaign. Like, I'm gonna review this unit only as a campaign unit because it's not going to be used in if somebody that's not Anticity uses this unit and actually wins a game because of this unit, I'd be extremely surprised. Like, otherwise, I just don't see this unit being used ever. But yeah, Locus of Azir, very nice in campaign. You get 30% power recharge just for having this in the army, along with probably more stuff that it can get buffed by in the actual campaign by some skill trees or something. So yeah, absolutely nothing to write home about. This is a black coach in disguise, right, guys? Right. It's not. Don't take this unit. You're gonna not have a fun time. And that's pretty much it for Empire. So when it comes to Empire, who do you think is the best unit of the roster? Like, for Cav, definitely Knights Panther for me. And then Wolfkin, clear winner for me when it comes to the infantry side of it. Like, all of these other units, like Hunting Hound's probably the best unit that was added, but I'd say maybe Wolfkin, depending on how they perform. So very, very cool stuff. And I think definitely that Empire is going to have more of a fighting chance into certain factions because of especially the Wolfkin and the Hunting Hounds. These guys probably a side grade, but still not bad. Not as useful, but not as not useful. And now we're off to the Skaven, which is my forte. I absolutely freaking love Skaven. Skaven main over here. So we're going to be going over the units and what they do, especially when it comes to the units themselves. I'm also going to be showing you a couple of armies at the end, so definitely stick around for that. At least what I think is going to be the meta for the side of Skaven. So first off, if you didn't check it out, go to yesterday's video where I showcased the battle of Thanquol. So of course, if you don't like spoilers, don't watch it, of course. But if you do not care about the spoilers, then definitely go for it. So this stat card is specifically taken from not from the campaign, it's from the screen. So it is without the campaign buffs. So this is exactly what at current Thanquol is going to get, right? He doesn't get the extra. If you look at yesterday's video, he gets like 10% spell resistance, extra, I don't know, extra stats, etc., potentially. So this is actually what he's getting. So he's getting actually, this is not true. I remember him yesterday having both Plague and Ruin, and I only see the lore of one of these shown here. So this is not accurate for some reason. But either way, we can definitely look at a couple of things. So the first thing is his stats. So stats, nothing super crazy to write home about. I also tested him a bit in combat when it comes to melee, and he has okay animations, but not the greatest. And at 8k, he on his beastie, he is still very snipeable at 70 armor and no resists except the classic SC 15% missile resist. So he is definitely very squishy, but he packs quite a big punch with his flamer. So if you can somehow center an army around him and expect your opponent to not try to snipe him, which, I mean, the main way that you play into Skaven is to snipe their lord, you can definitely get a lot of bang for your buck out of this guy. We still don't know how much he will cost, but honestly, if he costs like 500 baseline, that's gonna be so cool, because the normal Gracier costs 350, and if this guy costs an infinity more, like 500 or maybe 600 or 650 something as baseline, then sure, depending on how expensive Bone Ripper is, I can definitely see him getting used. But if he's very expensive, like Ikit or something, let's actually check how much Ikit is base. Let me just do that for a second. I forgot, actually. So Ikit completely naked is 1k. Oof, that is a steep price for a lord. So I don't. Hopefully, Thankful is much less expensive than Ikit, because otherwise it's gonna be a tough sell to get Ikit. Like he has, or they say that he has the ability to take both Plague and Ruin, but if these are the spells that he takes, then they're all good spells. But the problem is that he doesn't get Dread 13th as a spell. He gets it just as an item, as a one-time use item that is free. But it is free. For 150, getting a Dreaded 13th, that's very good. I like that. But for the rest of it, questionable. Questionable if you're going to be taking him on Bone Ripper, if you're going to be taking him on foot, how expensive he's going to be. It's going to be a gamble, purely depending on how expensive he is. And for the rest of the extra spells that he has, these two spells over here, so he has Warpstone Addiction, which is a one-time use, which basically gives him, this actually pops on himself. I don't know why it says affects allies, because this is definitely a bug though. Like this pops directly on top of himself. So he just eats some Warpstone and gets 33% damage resistance. And Ineffable Scheme is nice. Like you roll a 6-sided dice, and depending on what he drops, you get either reload skill and the varying amounts of melee attack and magical attack. Not bad. If you're using him as a melee, though, I think you were already using him wrong. Though maybe the reload skill plus 42 does heavily impact his flamer, because pardon, because the flamer thing definitely wrecks. I had in one of the tests on the quest battle, I had the flamer basically 3-shot a dragon. So for sure this thing is very effective and very strong. It just depends on where you use it and if you can get it to use. But ignoring Thankful here, getting to the real giga fucking Chad, Screech Vermin King, boys. You saw how that guy looked yesterday. That's absolutely insane how he looks. That's the first thing. Second thing, we figured out how we can actually tell his price, because for some reason inside of that battle you can actually unsummon everything, including Screech Vermin King. So we basically unsummoned him. We did some math with how much spells cost, like all of the spells when you take them cost, and the answer is 812. So he is actually 2.4k baseline price, which is quite expensive. And he is not a lord, he is a legendary hero, which is very important here because you don't take him as a lord. And that's super, super important because we're going to be doing some calculations later when we overlook all of his stats and creating an army based on him, because Skaven hate their lord being sniped. Spoiler, you can take a 350 lord, put him in the trees, and then take this guy as your baseline melee specialist. And what a freaking baseline melee giga chad this guy is. Look at these cracked ass stats. 62. Okay, so yeah, yesterday there was an extra thing here, which is the contaminated effect. Thankfully, he does not have this, or he would be permabanned instantly. But yeah, he has magical attacks. Of course, he's a demon. He has bonus poison, which is great on anything. Like, why don't you just get extra poison? He has 600 weapon strength, which is very respectable. Plus 25 bonus versus large, which is, again, very nice. That brings him up to 87 on melee attack. He's not going to be missing anything. Very respectable charge bonus, so he's still very good. And 9.2k HP is definitely something that is noteworthy on an SC. He is basically an exalted keeper, which is super nice to have on Skaven, especially considering the following. He has 55 armor, which is not crazy, but not bad, right? It's better than the exalted keeper. He is a demon, so he gets plus 20% phys res. He gets plus 15% missile resistance for some reason, because I think they forgot to remove this from him, because he is an SE, he is a demon. Demons usually don't get that. So he still gets that. Maybe a combination of his inbreeding, I guess. He gets all 3 lore passives, potentially. Then he can get Arcane Conduit himself, because he himself is also a caster, which is crazy and insane. Oh, actually, I don't think I've taken these things into account when I was doing calculations. Maybe he's actually less than 2.4k now that I think about it, because I did not take into account the passives as well. Huh, interesting. If he's like 2k, that's insane though. But yeah, he gets Arcane Conduit, and then the selection of spells is interesting. Warp Lightning, best spell. Skitter Leap, but I can see use sometimes. Maybe even on himself, honestly. Then Death Frenzy. If you're going for Storm Fiends, which we're going to be covering next, this is a good spell. Because, yeah, it's gonna crack them up. Then Crack's Call, or this one is Crack's Call, and Plague. Not the greatest. Oh, or no, this is, pardon me, this is Vermintide. Vermintide, very good spell on him. Why? He's an SC. What does he hate? He hates halberds. He hates pointy sticks. And pointy sticks love to poke him down. And what do you do when you have pointy sticks around you? You summon a chaff unit on top of you to screen for you while you kill the enemy lord or enemy SC that you're trying to hunt with this guy. So very good. Love to see it. Vermintide gonna be definitely, like, my main take is it's gonna be like Warp Lightning and Vermintide taken on this guy, and this guy is gonna be your only caster. Like, there's no reason for something else. And then Crack's Call and Plague, inconsequential. They're just bad spells, so probably not gonna be used. But when we get to the items, man, he is cracked as hell. Oh, right. Also, this same thing, the Dreaded 13th, is also technically used here for Thankful. So I'm just going to copy that over here and fix it. 1 use. Inside of campaign, somehow this guy gets 3 uses, and I lost my shit when I saw 3 uses. Thankfully, that is, again, he would be insta-banned. That's like 61. But yeah, thankfully they don't give you 3 versions of it, or 3 uses of it in multiplayer. Or again, he would be insta-perma-banned. When it comes to Screech himself, he has some insanely sick things, like Will of the Vermin King. Baby, we get more leadership bombing effects on Skaven, which is going to be awesome to see. Like, as I said yesterday, I am a Skaven supremacist enjoyer, and minus 16 leadership, plus unbreakable on your own units is the dream. 29 seconds, very respectable. 35-meter range, fine. Not 55, but 35. But this is beautiful to see. Like when he, with terror, with minus 16, as an SC with 70 charge bonus, charges something from the side, that thing is going to take a 40 leadership bomb instantly. And they're going to be running for the hills. And that's exactly what we want to see. So this is an auto take. If you're not taking this, you should not be using Screech. Other than that, we see protection of the Horned Rat, which is completely cracked, depending on how fast you get to 60%. Because think about it. The usual counter to these types of huge SCs, like the Exalted Keeper of Secrets and stuff, is shooting, right? That's the thing that they hate. But he's already, with these two things, he is plus 35 resistance. So depending on how quickly he takes damage, he can literally go up to 95%. I think 90 is the cap, but 95% missile resistance, technically. So you're not going to be shooting this guy. You're going to need to have halberds, poke him, and the magical attacks on your shooting to actually be able to take him down, which is crazy and very cool, because this is not something that you usually need into Skaven. So he kind of changes that matchup completely. And then, of course, the newest, funnest thing that CA loves to give SCs is a teleport. So 130 range teleport. Let me actually check what's the range on the Dreadmaw. The Dreadmaw is like 100, right? Surface, no. Why does it not show? Where's the teleport thing? Let me actually check Bashiva. Maybe I can't even check Bashiva. I don't think I have the DLC. No, I can't check Bashiva. Okay, leave in the comments how long the Bashiva range is, because for some reason it's not showing for me currently. But yeah, Warp Step, a super cool ability. He like disappears, summons in his Guandao first, and then teleports on top of the unit. Like absolutely insane. Super cool. Not really anything special when it comes to the damage that he does, but again, this is amazing to see. Like you run this guy in, and then even if you have some cav like completely surround him. By the way, he has 4k mass, right? So he's not going to be getting stopped by anything. And then you also have a warp step if you're like in a compromised position to run away. And you have two types of summons, a freaking dreaded 13th. So if anything blobs on you, it instantly dies. And you have a screening tool with Vermintide. This guy's absolutely insane. Like I'm going to build so many armies around him just to test him out and see if he can like solo carry the game, because he seems absolutely insane. Current absolute favorite unit coming out, both from the coolness on how he absolutely insanely looks and on the actual utility of the unit. Absolutely love it. Next up, we got Storm Fiends, the Doomflayer Gauntlet. So Doomflayer version has some interesting effects. So these guys get like plus 15 on their bonus versus infantry. So do these guys. So plus 15. Which is very nice. Combined with the ability to have Frenzy, these guys are at 58 plus 15 melee attack, which is super cool on top of the huge weapon strength that they already have. They also have more models and way more HP, 3k more HP almost, than the actual Doomflayer unit. The only downside is that, one, Doomflayers have more armor with the best defense. So these guys are at 111 or 119 or something when they get into combat. But the counter to that is that you have Molder Monster. So Storm Fiends are definitely going to be used in combination with Throt the Unclean, and the Pact Master potentially. And just being healed by the Molder Monster buffs. I'm going to showcase that later if you don't know what that is. But yeah, these guys are completely cracked. I love them. They're also 1200. You could unsummon them in the quest battle. So I did. And you can summon more. And they're 1200. At least the Doomflayer variant. For 150, upgrading to these guys from Doom Flayers, I can definitely see it. And I can even see some armies running both, just as like an infinity mass that just runs at you because you don't care. You want to rush down your opponent. Stuff like Chaos Dwarfs or even Empire. Those types of factions that love to start off with some shooting and spears that aren't really that threatening. You can just start off with infinity mass and then run them down instantly and win the game. And these guys are definitely going to be a core part of it. Plus, any unit that is more mass for Skaven is appreciated because they only have rat ogres and rat ogres die. These guys are going to have a harder time dying with these stats, but the problem is they still have dogshit leadership. They still had 65, man. 65 leadership for this unit. Crazy. They do get ITP from Frenzy, Copium, but they do get it. So, yeah. Love to see it. Definitely going to be used. One of the better units inside of at least the current state of what they have shown. And I'm 100% building armies with these guys. Like, they're definitely seeming very good. And then the last unit, I believe, right? Yep, the last unit that was shown in the DLC, or out of the 4, is the Rattling Cannon variant of the Storm Fiends. So when you actually compare the stats to these guys, 48 to 30, 30 to 35. So you get less stats, of course, but you still keep Frenzy, which kind of makes them actually really good when you think about it, because they still have 40 melee attack. And then they have the missile strength, which is the same as the Rattling Guns missile strength, right? It is basically the same thing because these guys have way less models, but more weapon strength or missile strength. These guys have less missile strength, but double the models. So it's going to turn out to be just about the same. The main problem with these guys is ripping their first volley. So as always, any sort of like relatively short range bursty shooting unit has a problem with line of sight in this game specifically, and that's why I don't think that these guys are going to be as useful unless it is a specific faction that has dragons and strong flying units that you can shoot. For example, it's much better to take a Storm Fiend, in my opinion, into Furies, because when they get landed on top of by Furies, first they're gonna rip a first volley, right? But unlike the Teeth Breakers or the Rattling Guns, they're not gonna instantly die upon the Furies landing on top of them, because these guys have like 4k HP. These guys are pretty Giga Chad. They have 9k HP on 12 models, so, and can fight back. So these guys are going to be taken into Chaos factions specifically, and maybe like a Grand Cathay, to both screen flyers and be more immune to getting imbued, to getting shot at by cheap archers and stuff, and so on and so on. So definitely do see a use for them, but a relatively limited one. Though you can say the same probably for Rattling Gunners and Teeth Breakers. The reason I would still probably prefer Teeth Breakers is simply because of concealment bombs. Like, concealment bombs are so good that it is insane. Because when you summon them in, you just pop concealment, and then they have like 45 seconds to get into position. And your opponent is not going to be remembering that they exist until something dies. And in 2 volleys, these guys basically pay for themselves. Plus, they have magic damage, which sometimes you do need, because Skaven literally do not have magic damage on anything except these guys in globes. So, yeah, situational, probably not going to be taken as much. And there was a chevron on top of them, and they were like 14-12 or something in the campaign. So I assume that when you remove the chevron, which was like 60, 62 or something, you get 1350. So these guys are going to be 1350 by the looks of it. And yeah, for the rest of it, I'm just going to be showcasing the art of the rest of the units here because they look super cool. But obviously we still don't have the stats or anything when it comes to the units here. So we see the Warp Grinder, I assume. No, these guys are the Warp Grinders. So these guys are probably the Warp Flamer variant of the what is it? Oh no, this is the Warp Flamer variant of the Storm Fiends. So they're gonna be a Flamer unit. Flamer unit's not really that useful, but if Thanquol can do it, then these guys can as well. Definitely gonna be used. It just depends on where and when it comes to that. Then probably the globe variant, or is this the globe variant? Maybe I have I mixed them up again. But yeah, one of these two is the globe variant. This is probably the flamer actually because of the little mask thing. And these guys look like they're going to be shooting something at a relatively high distance. So flamer, globadier. Globadier, it depends on if it's a mortar or a globe thrower. If it's a mortar, it depends on if it's an avalanche mortar or if it's a globe mortar. Because if you look at the poison winds are just pure shit. Because of the way that their effect is applied on the missile hit, they're just bad. Because they can never hit anything. They're super inaccurate. They're very slow. They have very few projectiles and so on and so on. So it really does depend on if it's a globe or a mortar. Because if it splits the same way that an avalanche mortar splits, these guys are going to be amazing. If they don't, I can see issues. They're still a Storm Fiend, so sure. But otherwise, probably not going to be taken. When it comes to the Warp Grinders, the Warp Grinders are rumored to have a what is it called, the snare ability or the other ability of the Warp Grinders that does the damage. So depending on how good their stats are in melee, probably going to be pretty cool unit. Because imagine you have a cab unit and then you have your Warp Grinders, and you usually get cycle charged by Skaven, like by something else as Skaven. So that means that you taking these guys and potentially having a net on them is going to be really cool because they can't run away, right? So we're going to be definitely seeing a bunch of that. This is the Pox Cauldron thing. Still don't know anything about it, so I don't know what to speculate even for it. But yeah, looks like the art for it is mega cool. Like this is awesome. And this is probably going to be the anti-large variant, I assume, for the Storm Fiends. Super excited if it does exist and it does turn out to be an anti-large variant. We also get the ROR Catapult, which I don't know what they can add to the ROR Catapult. Probably, like, again, a Poison Wind effect would be my assumption. But I don't know, especially considering this is like so green. Maybe truly it is going to be a poison wind effect. That's actually going to be cool if it is. Then we have the magma cannon, which is like a super one-shot, one-kill thing that it is supposed to be. So interesting. Probably going to be how much on the roster? Like Skaven currently have the Iked Zap Zap at 1200. So maybe this thing is like somewhere in that range, 1100, 1200, depending on what exactly it does. The ROR Storm Vermin. Okay, so these guys, if you look closely, these guys actually have a spear in their hand. So they're probably going to be an anti-large variant of the Storm Vermin too, which is good. Like, I think it's much better than having a normal variant that doesn't have the bonus versus large, because again, you want pokey sticks on Skaven. Super exciting. And then we have the again Storm Fiend, it looks like, that is going to be a rattling cannon with some magic damage here potentially. And last but not least, the pus bags, rumored to be a unit that decays over time and provides terror, which is going to be super interesting on a Skaven slave unit. So especially when you think about Screech that we have showcased previously, right? Screech over here has a bunch of terror bombing effects. And now imagine there is an extra contaminated effect that you can just bring for 150 or 100 or however much that they will cost. That's going to be really cool. Really cool to see. So what do you guys think on the Skaven, man? Skaven, to me, are my favorite faction. They're, ever since Dustman from RTK introduced me to them, I have been just spamming Skaven, and no other faction feels the same as Skaven. Like, you always, even though they're a bit underpowered, especially when it comes to the leadership, I feel like they scratched that itch for me. And every single time that I create an army for them and go into an even unfavorable matchup, excluding undead, fuck undead, but it's gonna not be a fun patch for me when I think about it with so many undead, especially on Nagash. Ugh. But I digress. Every single time that even when you lose, you feel like you could have won if you just played a tiny bit better, and that's exactly the itch that comes to mind. But yeah, this is Skaven. So what do you guys think on Skaven here? And as I promised, I'm gonna be moving to the actual game over here, and I'm gonna be showcasing potentially 2 builds that are going to be like pretty used in, or at least I am going to be definitely using them in the coming patch when the units come out. So this is your quintessential skirmish core plus mass army. You might notice here that something is missing here, and 1200. If we remember the price of our boys over here, they're 1200. Okay, so the thing is, you're going to be taking 1 extra Storm Fiend in the reinforcement army, and then you're going to be taking 2 Storm Fiends and Screech in the other army, in the main army. So the point of this army would be to take the Plague Priest, take his contaminated effect, because we don't know the details of the pus bags yet at least, but if I can remove this guy, potentially I would. But you're going to be taking Screech. You're going to be probably putting just a naked Gracier in the corner of the map in multiplayer. Because the main issue for Skaven is, 1, they need to bring a Chieftain with Power Grab. So if you don't bring this guy, I mean, you have to bring him because he's a Lord, right? But if you don't bring this guy, you have to bring a Chieftain. And the Chieftain is a 650 drain on your resources in the back of your army, just because he has the Power Grab ability. So that he saves your entire army if your entire army dies, if your Lord dies. But with having a Gracier in the corner of the map somewhere, hidden, you're probably not going to have this issue. So I would wager that you don't need your Chieftain, which frees up a slot for you. That slot can be taken by a Packmaster with running with the pack and or Shock Collar, because you can then have healing for your Molder monsters, which are the Rat Ogres, which are the Storm Fiends as well, and you're going to have just him running around healing and having an SC battle with all of the other units, right? On a hot dog, he is nothing to write home about, sadly. He is 55. Please give him 5 more leadership. 55 leadership. At least he's terror. So he's not going to run away immediately, and at least he has regen. But this is pathetic, man. Packmaster. Right? And then what you do is basically you summon in, depending on what you're looking at the army. You either summon in Wolf Rats or summon in Gutter Runners and the other Storm Fiend, and you just run at your opponent, man. Like, you have Screech and 2 extra Storm Fiends at the start over here, and you have some sort of skirmish to counter skirmish any sort of units that are going to be skirmishing you. Whoops, I forgot to change this. Sorry about that. So the idea of this is, you're gonna get the Gutter Runners and the Wolf Rats out potentially first, and then when your Storm Fiends start taking damage, you take out the Packmaster. So you're probably gonna be summoning in like 2 Wolf Rats, 2 Gutter Runners, and then going for the Packmaster. And by that time, you either win or lose the game, depending on the skew build that you created here. So it's gonna be like a rush, but if you also have, why I take the Plague Priest. So the Plague Priest is there to summon in more rats with the Vermintide. Because when you're going for an all-mass SC build, there's going to be a lot of halberds and or spears in the army of your opponent that are going to be prioritized to come out, or any sort of anti-large cav that again feast on your mass. What is the anti version of that? Just summon in a clan rat. Summoning in an extra clan rat on top of your rat ogres basically gives them the favorable fight for it. Same thing is going to happen with Storm Fiends and Screech. So, and Screech himself is, I took Screech with the things that I wrote down here. So you would take Screech, assuming he is 2.4k baseline, which he probably is even less. You take all of the items and the Dreaded 13th spell and 2 spells. And you take Warp Lightning and you take Vermintide. And then you get Will of the Vermin King, Will of the Vermin King, Dreaded 13th, and Warp Step. So I don't think anything that has shooting, that doesn't start off with a high amount of defensive anti-large units, can ever stop this type of army. Because if they start, let's say a third of your opponent's army is somehow shooting. So let's say like stuff like Dark Elves, Grand Cathay. Okay, Grand Cathay potentially not, just because they start with, so they default to halberds. But like High Elves, Lizard Men potentially, Ogre Kingdoms is completely cooked here. Warriors of Chaos probably not, but maybe Tzeentch. Wood Elves even potentially, probably not, because they go for a certain type of build into you. Maybe Greenskins too. Dwarves are already cooked, so you don't need to mention them. Britonia, if they don't start with Mass Cav. Chaos Dwarves completely cooked by this type of build. Maybe even Beastmen. All of these factions start off with some sort of shooting. And if you just wait enough to summon in like 2 Wolf Rats at the start and maybe 2 Gutters, you're gonna run them over. Insanely quickly too, I might add. So this is my speculation, one of my speculation armies. If you're, however, a enjoyer of going a bit wider, I'd take this type of army. Because again, if it's based on Screech, which I'm gonna be testing a bunch, you could take Screech. Of course, you take Natty Boobas as your main poking unit. And then you start off with mass always. Never forget to add at least some mass, unless you're Charex, into your starting army. And then you get Screech, right? That's the 3.2k that's missing here. And then for the rest of it, if you see your opponent being relatively passive, summon in your slaves. Like your slaves, then you just go super, super wide. And you still have Screech with both the summon, both Warp Lightning, and the Dreaded 13th. So when the fighting does break out, he is going to dominate the fight. And you're going to force your opponent forward with the Natty Boobas, as you always do. You also potentially want a Pocket Howling Warp Gale caster, just because you don't have anything that shoots up that's super effective. And then you take the Gutter Runners to also supplement that. Oh, also, I put in these 2 units here, but these guys are Storm Fiends. These guys are not the Iked Zap Zap and the Dwarf Menace thing, okay? These are 2 Storm Fiends that you probably take in this matchup. So, yeah. Also, backline, mid-late game, mid-late or late game Halberd unit, always MVP, always take at least one. This is not just a tip for Skaven, this is a tip for every single faction. So, always take a Storm Vermin or any type of equivalent elite halberd unit in the later parts of the game, because your opponent is in the mid game gonna start spamming out just Cav. What is the anti to Cav? Halberds. Put them on a point, they're gonna sit there, they're gonna capture the point, they're not gonna be compromised, and you're gonna hold that point as an anchor for the rest of your game. And then yeah, there's just gonna be a couple of speed mobility units besides your slaves, and Screech is going to carry. Like, the point of this type of army is to create support around Screech, and then you micro Screech to the best of your ability to actually win, with him having some sort of mass support and one unit that is focused on actually providing you massive amounts of value, which you also protect by both the Howling Warp Gale and a couple of Gutter Runners. So hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. I also hope that you enjoyed the army suggestions from here. And definitely do try them out if you ever get your hands on top of the Skaven when the DLC actually does come out. And we're also going to be getting a couple of more units in the following weeks and potentially even more content. So if you like this, if you want to speculate yourselves, definitely do so in the comments. I'm going to be here and speculate with you because again, we all love the game, and this is definitely going to shape the meta and shake up the current state of the meta for the future of the next patch. So, well, again, hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's a freaking long one. Jesus Christ, I ranted for an hour. My God. MVP to anybody who is fucking here for the entirety of the video. But yeah, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.